Grant, you mentioned that you use our products on your own firearms. What sets us apart from the traditional CLP?
Okay, a CLP, a cleaner lubricant preservative, is an all-in-one product, and the idea is to give the person one solution that they can just, clean their gun with, and it will leave some lubricant behind. Now, the CLP came about from the military. And the idea is to reduce the number of things that the military has to put out on the battlefield, right? If you have 15 products to clean a gun, well, that becomes real hard to manage when you're in battle. And so they came up with the idea of a CLP, a cleaner lube preservative, and the idea was, the soldiers could just use this one thing and clean their guns. Well, that's great for the military. But the problem with the CLP is that it doesn't clean really well. It doesn't lubricate very well because the cleaner has to evaporate to leave some lube behind. So you're limited on what you can do in terms of lubricant and what you can do in terms of anti-wear additives and things like that. And so it doesn't do any job really very well. For the military, they don't care. If they wear out a gun, if parts wear out, they've got armorers, they've got billions of parts. If necessary, they can just go get another rifle. It's not a big deal. Well, when I spend my money on a gun, I'm spending my money. I'm not going to buy another one. I want to protect it to the best of my ability. So I'm going to use a separate cleaner, which really cleans really well, and I'm going to use separate lubricants, which lubricate really well to protect that gun. I don't want any excess wear, and so by using a good lubricant like the FMO gun oil or the SFL gun grease, reduces the amount of wear on my gun and extends my investment in that firearm.
So Grant, as you know, we have a firearms grease and oil. Where would you use each of those and why?
Well, the nice thing about grease and oil is it allows you to tailor the lubrication for the job that you're going to do. Generally, I tell people that you use oil on rotating parts and grease on sliding parts that carry a load. For instance, on a firearm, if you have an auto-loading pistol where you've got a slide that moves back and forth, grease is the perfect thing to put on the slide rails, on both inside and outside, to lubricate the slide as it goes back and forth. You might use an oil on the rotating parts and the trigger and things like that, where there's not as much action going on. And the reason I like a grease on those action parts is because the grease doesn't throw off as easily, right? So as the gun is operating, it doesn't tend to lose its lubricant over time, like it sometimes does with an oil. Now, I will use an oil, for instance, on the trigger pins on an AR-15 rifle, because they rotate, they're in aluminum, they need good lubrication, and that's not a part that's violently operating and to throw the oil off. I do use grease on the AR-15 bolt. On my AR-15s, I use the SFL grease, and just a little bit, doesn't take a lot, but on the operating surfaces and on the cam pin on the bolt, and then on the rails of the bolt carrier, because again, that's a part that's got violent action. It throws lubricants off. So I found that combination works really well. If people just remember oil on rotating parts, grease on sliding parts that carry a load, and that's the best recommendation I can make.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Grant.